Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for an update on my Hearts of Iron 4 verified video. This of course means that I will largely ignore the new and changed focus trees, as these are, for the most part, for alternate history paths. They are still fun, so if you like to play as alternate USA or United Kingdom, the DLC might be a thing for you. The expanded trees for the historical focuses of the other nations, as also the new trees for Mexico and the Netherlands, are interesting, but won't play a role here. I would like to say though that the work done on them is good nonetheless. Alright, from now on I will make no difference between patch 1.6 Ironclad and the DLC Man the Guns. And one more thing, I received the key for Man the Guns as a preview key by Paradox Interactive. I think you should know that, but be assured this doesn't cloud my judgment, as you hopefully notice while watching this review. One thing that will spice up playing a historical USA now a bit is the new Senate and Congress mechanic. You really have to keep an eye on your political power and the balance in the Senate and Congress to act the way you want. At least theoretically, it seems there are a few bugs still, but I'm pretty sure they will address this quickly. It still doesn't change too much how boring it can be to play a historical USA, but certainly makes the long wait more enjoyable until the real action begins. Of the new features, the ship designer is one of the biggest improvements, and in concert with the full naval rework, an absolutely awesome addition to the game. If you watched my streams, you might have seen how I debated with my viewers how one should configure all these various slots. Light and heavy AA cruisers, light spotter and ASW cruisers, AA destroyers, ASW destroyers, destroyer escorts, mine layers, sweepers, AA heavy battleships, heavily, lightly or unarmored carriers, mine layer submarines, and so on and so on. It's actually surprisingly enjoyable to construct these various ships. The naval treaties and the option for fascist countries to cheat on them add additional depth to it. Another excellent usage of it comes with the new feature to refit older ships, so older ships are viable for far longer times, as you can upgrade their anti-aircraft defenses, give them radars, sonars, anti-submarine equipment, especially for the mass of old destroyers you have with Japan and Great Britain and the US, and even new main batteries. Yeah, this means finally Scharnhorst get their intended gun upgrade, just like in World of Warships. And some nations are able to churn out a lot more carriers now, as they could just refit older battleships and heavy cruisers with the carrier conversion tech. Of course, it also has its drawbacks. Sadly, the models for the ships are completely generic, something that was quite a disappointment. I know some modders will probably get on this pretty quickly, or at least I hope so, but for such an important and highly advertised feature, this is still pretty annoying. This especially buggers me with the German Deutschland-class Panzerschiffe, a whole new and Germany-exclusive long-range surface radar ship class. Careful here though, the other Germany-exclusive ship class of pre-dreadnoughts is also called Deutschland-class. But to come back to the Panzerschiffe, or pocket battleships as the British called them, I think most of you know at least about the Admiral Graf Spee and the Battle of River Plate. But just to elaborate a bit more, these Panzerschiffe were essentially super heavy cruisers in terms of armament, which were two 28cm triple turrets, like the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau. They had an exceptional range, the armor of a heavy cruiser, and were, thanks to their at this time revolutionary usage of diesel engines, far quicker to accelerate than battle cruisers with conventional steam turbines. The idea was to outgun anything faster and outrun anything stronger, which essentially did work out more or less. Sadly, someone forgot that even light damage can severely limit the capabilities of a warship, which resulted in the scuttling of the Graf Spee after she essentially defeated 2 light and 1 heavy cruiser of the Royal Navy in a, tactically very badly executed battle. In-game, though, these ships are really good as long as you don't hunt them with heavy units. Destroyers and light cruisers are easily dispatched, even heavy cruisers usually don't stand a chance, thanks to the excellent piercing of the guns. Mine are usually operating far down in the south, along the South American coast. Against the AI they were devastating. In MP they might be worse, but still quite annoying, I think. Sadly, their ship designer model is completely wrong, with a single twin-barreled turret on the bow. Yes, this is pretty subjective, because I really like these ships, but still. Oh, and the manpower is also not correct. The Hipper-class heavy cruisers need only 800 manpower, while the Panzerschiffe need 1800. In reality, it is the other way around, with a Hipper-class being crewed by 1600 men and a Deutschland-class by up to 1150 men. Remember, the Panzerschiffe were intended as long-range surface raiders, not fighting ships, which is more or less represented in the game because they don't have as much hit points as a heavy cruiser. I also fail to see what the Germany-exclusive cruiser submarines are good for. They are long-range submarines, though with only 1000 kilometers more range than the 1936 subs, and you need a focus to get them. Their torpedo attack is potentially far stronger, as they have an additional slot that can be used for mines, torpedoes, or even spotter aircraft. Yeah, really strange. Other than the 1936 sub, it can also get a radar if you researched it already. Generally, I like them as really efficient mine layer subs, but they are too expensive for what they do at the moment. The biggest problem right now is that assigning multiple regions to a fleet doesn't really work. The task forces of a fleet all operate in all assigned sea regions, so your long-range sub-cruisers can't operate under the command of Dönitz, otherwise your early and 1936 tech subs will try to operate far outside their actual range and don't kill anything. So this is a massive drawback. Hopefully this gets fixed soon. The same is of course true for mine layer submarines, just not that important in this case as you can just assign them to another admiral. Besides, I like mine warfare. Could get really annoying in multiplayer, especially if you also use planes to drop them, as naval bombers, tactical bombers and strategical bombers are able to drop them. Anyway, these things could work with a greater range, a fix for the region assignment bug, and of course Japan needs them too, because they actually used planes on submarines. Well, isn't it great when you're making a video and while recording additional footage you notice they already implemented one of your ideas in the beta patch. Yeah. Additional fuel tanks for cruiser submarines are now in, so they get a pretty impressive range. For the new naval battle mechanics, they seem to work alright. Submarines are now really a problem if you don't tag up sonar quickly, and even then especially German submarines with decent doctrine and Dönitz as admiral are really slippery bastards. That submarines are able to attack ships without getting spotted, and that the evasion rating only kicks in if the torpedoes are spotted themselves, is a really great mechanic. Going submarine heavy is now really an option for a German player, be it multiplayer or single player, as you can see in these screenshots. Naval battles are far more interesting to watch and of course to plan. The mechanics are more understandable if you dig a bit into them. And the admirals add some nice flavor and management options, because you have to choose the right admiral for the right fleet and tasks. Setting up the correct size, fleet composition, and especially to build the right ships at the right time is now actually fun and engaging. Though I still struggle to understand the reserve fleet concept, as I don't really want my ships to sit in the harbor waiting for a fleet to suffer losses so I can reinforce it. In my eyes, it makes more sense having the ships at sea in their own task force to join the fight. At the moment there is sadly something of an imbalance, as it is really hard to build enough ships as Japan. It is practically impossible to construct the ships the Japanese Empire was able to commission during the 1930s. Increasing the naval dockyard capacity of the Empire of Japan should really be considered by Paradox. Even Germany is capable to produce the ships it had in reality. It is somewhat ironic that the only real navy-focused Axis nation isn't able to do that. Now we finally get to the biggest new feature: fuel! Honestly, it's incredible this wasn't in the game from the beginning, but here it finally is. Tanks, trucks, planes and ships need fuel to move, fight and also train. As experience is now much more important to speed up research, constantly training is pretty important, which puts huge stress on your fuel reserves. Nations without oil fields need to import oil to get enough fuel. I built the maximum number of synthetic refineries possible on core territory, and it wasn't enough to keep my 24 tanks and 24 motorized divisions running together with submarine warfare and aerial combat. And this is where I'm actually disappointed, because that's the way it should be. Instead, you are able to increase your fuel production so massively with tanks and refineries in occupied regions that it becomes ever less relevant the longer the game goes on. And the reason for that is that better planes and tanks don't consume more fuel. A German Großtraktor 1934 heavy tank, which by the way is the wrong name as the picture shows a Neubaufahrzeug, with its weight of either 19 or 23 tons and up to 300 HP engine, uses just as much fuel as a Tiger 1 with a weight between 54 and 57 tons and a 700 horsepower engine. It's the same with light and medium tanks and also planes. And there it gets a bit ridiculous, as heavy fighters that have, in case of the Germans, literally double the number of the very same engines of the light fighters use just as much fuel. As contrary to reality, the fuel consumption of your tanks and fighters does not increase significantly throughout the war. One of the major problems of all sides is not present in the game. This is especially noticeable as Germany, as from 1942 onwards you will be drowning in fuel, even with all your units operating with maximum fuel usage. In reality, this wasn't really the case, otherwise they wouldn't have run for the Caucasus. Sadly, two of my major points of critique are still there. Light tanks, especially low-tech, rule. This is mainly an AI problem, as spamming light tanks and light SPGs doesn't work against a half-decent MP opponent who builds at least some AT guns. But is it that difficult to give the AI infantry template some anti-tank weapons? Come on! Thankfully, I noticed at least the Soviet Union seems to have gotten improved templates for their early divisions and fields some AT guns, but not nearly enough. And last but not least, coal. Yes, really. For various reasons, it is about time we get coal as a resource in the game. With synthetic fuel refining becoming even more important than it was before now, the most basic resource for anything is still not in the game. Coal was the major source of electricity during the war. Fuel was synthesized from coal. You needed it for trains and older ships, especially on the rivers. The population used it for cooking and heating. The world of the 1930s and 40s, even 1950s, ran on coal, not fuel, not oil. Alright, I think this is it. Overall, the patch and DLC together are a massive improvement, and it is probably the first Hearts of Iron 4 DLC that is actually worth its money. Even more so if you like to play ahistorical. Yeah, I hope you liked it. That's it for today. If you like what you saw, please consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar. Also, thank you very much to Jack for sending me the books I used, and of course, all my supporters. All the best, and see you on the next video.